Today is Friday the 13th, which in
Friday the 13th. Unlucky for some.
for us as well. I think today we've had a few technical difficulties just getting started, but I hope that people are
Yes.
able to find us and join it with the live stream today. So
Do you know the origin of Friday the 13th, John?
not really.
No, I
Um,
don't think anyone does. There are many theories floating around. One has to do with a story about the Norse gods.
hmm
Do you know about the Norse gods?
No, you
Well,
tell me the story about the North gods,
okay,
Valhalla and
well,
all that. Yeah.
the Norse gods are kind of important if you're studying English because they lend a lot of vocabulary to us, like Tuesday, Wednesday,
Oh yeah.
Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
Those are all named after Norse gods. But anyways, they had a kingdom. In the Greek mythology, they had Mount Olympus.
Mm,
The Norse gods had a place called Valhalla, which was
right.
up in some other planet, even. I don't know that much.
Mm.
But, anyways, the gods were having a big dinner. There were 12 of them invited, and one was not invited, and his name is Loki. You might have heard of him. He was the trickster. He liked to play jokes on people. He was very mischievous. And apparently, he was not very happy about not being invited and did a bunch of terrible things. And so, 13 at dinner becomes an unlucky number.
I can
Yeah.
imagine that the Last Supper as well of Jesus Christ would have something to do with it, wouldn't it? I mean, there were 13 of them around the table and one of them was the betrayer. At any
Yes.
rate, in
Judas wasn't the hero there
not
in that
exactly,
story. No.
no.
So
So
13.
we've got this thing about the 13th and how unlucky it is and how unlucky it has been so far for us today with a few technical glitches getting started. So we hope that we're going to be able to watch the rest of this presentation without too much trouble. Okay then, now I've got something on the timing of English because last week
All right.
you especially, you were talking about, well, this was something that Ray Lewis, a comment that he made in the live chat. There's this connected speaking, which is a little bit like joined up handwriting. It's much harder
Yes.
to
Yeah,
read
yeah.
than if
We're
we say every word separately. People can hear it pretty easily, but we don't speak like that in any language really. We just, words just stream one into the other.
like a flow,
Hmm.
right?
There's no
Yeah.
gap.
Yeah, there's no break.
Hmm.
And when we look at voice samples on a wave reader, something that can read the sound waves that we're making, you'll notice there are no breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so people don't break just because a word has ended.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, the way this works in most languages is that each syllable gets a fairly equal weight. So, por ejemplo en español, okay.
Hmm.
日本語でもそうです. In Japanese, it's the same. 日本語でもそうです.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but English is different. It's not syllable timed. And
No, no, not at all.
this is what I want to talk about. And I made a little presentation for it. So again, let's
Oh, perfect.
hope that it'll work here. And yeah. Okay, you should all be seeing a blank screen right now, which is going to move on into Just showing you how we mark strong and weak. We use this diagonal line to show strong, and we use this upside down little kind of curvy thing to show a weak syllable.
Okay. I don't see it on my screen.
It'll take a little while to filter through into the live stream. Okay,
Right.
so you're seeing what you're seeing on YouTube is 30 seconds ago, so it should be starting to come up in a few seconds. It's come up now.
Okay. Yes, I can see it now.
So what we're doing in English is, rather than giving an equal amount of time to each syllable, we're using the strong stress, giving more emphasis to that. And well, let's take a look at an example and you'll understand it a lot better.
Okay.
So I've taken something very simple here. I like fish, and we can say it different ways depending on the context. Who likes fish? I like fish. Okay.
I don't like fish.
Okay. The I goes on. The I gets the strong syllable here. I like fish. All right. Who likes fish? I like fish. Because I is the important word, answering who. Okay. You don't like fish. Well, actually, you don't. But suppose you did. You'd say, hey, wait a minute. That's not true. I like fish. I like fish.
I like fish. Yeah.
Try and convince yourself there, Veronica. Try and sound as if you really believe it.
I'm trying.
But actually you don't.
I like shrimp.
Okay. So then, okay, that would be the third one. What do you like? And in your case, it would be not I like fish, but I like shrimp. Okay? So we could put the stress in any of those places depending on what the important word is, the important lexical item in that
Right.
particular sentence. You can even have two. You can say something like, I like fish. All right, or something like that. So we've got all these different possible combinations depending on the context. Are we okay that far? If anybody's not
I think so.
sure about anything, just say something in the chat. Just put in a little comment like, I didn't catch what you said, or I didn't really get that. But what I'm going to do here now is just give each syllable the same stress. I like fish. Okay, I'm flicking my finger and thumb here. I like fish. Okay, so each one gets the same amount of stress. Now let's look at this one. How do you think we might say that in English? Assuming we give it the same three stresses, because we may have a different number of stresses, but we quite likely say, I like a bit of fish. Okay? So I like fish and I like a bit of fish. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Yeah, we've got three there.
Right. You've got the same three strong ones, but you've got three weak ones that are coming in between. But look what happens to the timing there. I like fish. I like a bit of fish. They're taking pretty much the same amount of time to say. We're not taking twice as long to say, I like a bit of fish. We're saying, I like fish and I like a bit of fish. All right? So this is what English does. It gives the amount of time to the strong syllables, and then the weak syllables just fit in between. And notice that we don't say, I like a bit of fish. We say, I like a bit of fish. The I gets weakened into sort of, I like a bit of, a bit becomes the schwa, and of fish. I like a bit of fish. So let's look at another one. This is getting even longer. And again, we can say this, and it would be perfectly natural to say it with the same three stresses. Where would we put the stresses this time? Have a think about it. Have a think about it. And okay, I'll go for it. It would be like that. The normal. I mean, as I say, there are different options depending on context, but it would be very typical for us to say, "There's nothing so tasty as fish." Dee-dum, dee-dee-dum, dee-dee-dum.
And it's 3 again.
Right, you got 3 strong ones, and basically it might take a little bit longer, but roughly speaking, each one of those takes about the same amount of time to say. I like fish. I like a bit of fish. There's nothing so tasty as fish.
And if I tried that, I'm sure I would do the same thing.
Well, go on, do
We'll
it.
just do a little test.
Uh-huh.
I like fish. I like a bit of fish. There's nothing so tasty as fish.
The last one.
I think I did that just automatically. That's the way I'm going to say it. Yeah.
Right, and the last one was a little bit longer, but it's not like 3 times or nearly 3 times as long as the first one. It's a little bit longer.
We're not going to count the syllables and say that's how much longer it's going to be.
No. So
Yeah.
also there's the pronunciation again. Look at this third one. There's nothing so tasty as fish. I'm not saying there's nothing so tasty as fish. I'm not giving the full pronunciation to those weak syllables. The weak syllables are getting kind of half pronounced. There's nothing so tasty as fish. Okay? So the weak syllables are weak. They're not fully pronounced. And if you're listening for the full pronunciation, you're not going to get it. Okay? So
That's it.
you need to be listening, focusing on the lexical content words, the important words. Nothing, tasty, fish. Those are the important words for us in that utterance. And there's nothing so tasty as fish. Well, those other words are kind of filling in the grammar, filling in the structure. But the basic content is nothing tasty fish. Nothing so tasty as fish. But we don't need to stress those weak syllables, and we just kind of half pronounce them, and they get squeezed in. So it's like dee-dum, dee-dee-dum, dee-dee-dum. There's nothing so tasty as fish.
Right.
Okay.
I often do a little exercise similar to that, John.
Okay.
An apple,
Right.
a red apple, a delicious red apple.
Right.
You know, there really wasn't much more time spent on a delicious red apple, but it has a lot more syllables.
That's right.
And if you answer me with the fish or anything, you're gonna match my rhythm. So if you say, "Hi, how are you?" "Hi, how are you?" I'm gonna say, "Fine." Right? I'm gonna stretch out my one syllable to try to match your 2 or 3 or whatever you've used, right? Your
Right.
stress pattern.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's just slightly move on a little bit. And we've got this one. There's nothing so tasty as fish. All right. I'm just going to look at the strong syllables here. Okay.
Okay.
And we'll just look at 1 or 2 more examples. What about this one? How would you say that, Veronica?
I don't know because I can't see it on the screen.
It hasn't come up yet for you. Of course, it takes 30. This is 30-second delay that YouTube has. I think it's in case something goes desperately wrong and we need to end the live stream. But I think it should be on your screen now. Can you see it?
I see it now. I'm coming to see you on Tuesday.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm coming to see you on Tuesday.
Yeah. So it's again 3 strong syllables. Coming, see, choose. Coming, see, Tuesday. So I'm coming to
And
see.
you fit everything in between those coming, see,
they just get kind of fitted in, like, so it becomes dee-dum-dee-dee-dum-dee-dee-dum-dum. I'm coming to see you on Tuesday.
Or in some kind of singing with the other person,
Right.
and whatever they say,
Mm.
you just copy their rhythm,
Right.
and I think you slowly get a sense of that.
Yeah. Language does have something in common with music in that sense, doesn't it? So all of these, they're all following the same pattern. There's nothing so tasty as fish. I'm coming to see you on Tuesday. I hope you remember to thank him. And the last one is, you shouldn't have told him to go. And so,
You shouldn't have told them to go.
right. And of course, there are slightly different ways of saying it, but almost invariably we would put the stress on those three words and nowhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Younger speakers might only put two stresses in, where we're putting three.
How would they say that?
I shouldn't have told him to go. Like that. I remember my mother trying to understand her grandchildren. She could not understand what they were saying, and I figured this out, that they were using fewer strong stresses in their sentences. They just couldn't get the sentences out quickly enough. So,
but wouldn't they stress the negative? You shouldn't have.
exactly, they shouldn't have told him to go. Okay, so shouldn't and go. And that's all that mattered to them in that sentence. The told bit was less important. They didn't stress it very much. So it got kind of lost. And I think that's something that younger people do. They use fewer stresses in their sentences. Whereas an older person is more likely to say something like, there's nothing so tasty as fish. Okay, perhaps putting 4 or 5 strong stresses in there. Whereas a younger person would say, oh, there's nothing so tasty as fish. Nothing, fish. Nothing and fish would be the really important ones. And the middle way would be to say, well, the 3 content words are nothing, tasty and fish, and that they would get some sort of stress. Okay?
Yes. I think too, though, like you were saying at the beginning, John, really it depends on the context of the conversation. I think something what we could probably do to help our students is teach them the standard way is the most regular, frequent way that's going to happen. And then we can expand from there,
Right.
so that they get the right idea, and then just if there's nothing so tasty as fish, and we want to stress the fish, it would be there's nothing so tasty as fish, or there's nothing so tasty as fish.
Right.
All of those exceptions to the standard tendency, those can come after.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
Learn the standard first. Learn what people tend to say in a normal conversation, and then you can expand your trials in different contexts.
Right. Yeah. I think that's also something that underpins quite a lot of the grammatical questions that we're getting, that people are asking about unusual, obscure constructions, and they're worrying too much about exceptional things. I think we'll come back to this one a bit more next week and look at like purposes for learning English. Why are people, why exactly are you learning English? Are you simply learning it in order to be able to answer difficult grammar questions in tests that you're having to do, as part of your education?
And I mean, that's a good enough reason if that's your reason.
Right.
But it's completely different from the objective of learning a language to be able to communicate in it.
Yeah, you might understand all those.
This kind of goes into all kinds of motivations. If your motivation is you take an exam, then you're going to be more focused on some of these obscure grammar questions
Mm.
because a lot of countries' state exams do tricky questions. I call them underhanded questions. Things that a 15-year-old native speaker from Canada, Australia, England can't answer. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I don't have any contact with the people writing these exams, so I can't tell them how
No.
ridiculous it is. And I'm really sorry for those students who have to learn that.
Yeah.
But it has nothing to do with communicating.
No, it doesn't. My daughter, growing up here in Japan, bilingual between Japanese and English, had her worst moments when she was put in English classes where she was expected to relate to the language in the way that the poor Japanese students had to do, because although she could speak the language perfectly, she simply couldn't answer these questions about subject and predicate. What, John? What is a predicate? What is a predicate? And is this a complement or an object? You know, she just was.
I don't know.
No, that's right. Very native speakers would mostly not know these things and wouldn't need to know.
And all it is knowing terms. It's just learning some vocabulary for the discipline of grammar or linguistics. That doesn't mean anything about being able to learn the language.
Right. So if you're looking
My daughter, like your daughter, is a native speaker of English, but she also speaks French and Spanish.
Mm.
And when she has to go to an English class in Spain, and they tell her past participle, gerund, conditional. She comes home and she says, "What does that mean?"
No.
And she has perfect command of the English language, but she doesn't know what conditional means.
No. And there's no particular reason for a native speaker to have to know those things, because people speak, as people will know, they speak their own language without worrying about those things and without knowing about those things. So if you want communicative competence, that's one thing. A certain amount of grammar is over the top. I mean, it doesn't very often make much difference to you to know whether something is a past participle or a gerund, for example. It doesn't usually help, especially when they're being both used adjectively. I mean, if I say a running man or a crying baby, and I say a washing machine, I mean, the only difference is that the crying baby is actually crying right now, whereas the washing machine may not be doing anything right now. But what good does it really do a learner to know that the crying of a crying baby is different from the washing of a washing machine? It's not.
Yes.
There's very little practical purpose. I mean, obviously, if you get advanced enough in the language, those things may start to become important to you in certain ways. There's a slight difference in pronunciation, for example.
Yes.
There are little differences there and little nuances, but for most people, for most practical purposes, the idea that at the age of 12 or 13 you're being taught that, rather than how to order a cup of coffee or something.
Or buy a bus ticket.
Yes, it shows that you're being taught the language in order to pass tests, really. Rather than to be able to speak it. So shall we move on then?
And I think to help people with those kinds of issues, a good way to do it is not from the top down, but from the bottom up. Look at the language and forget all the terms. Take the language, the sentence, and find the phrases. And think about the function. What is it trying to do? How is it helping to pass the message across. Why are they, break your verb phrase into its parts, look at it and say, why does it have this ing? Don't think continuous or anything like that. Why does it have this ing?
Mm. Mm.
Why does it have an ed? Why does it have and an ed? Think of those things. Don't worry about perfect and continuous and simple. You can get mired in that kind of stuff.
The labels can be counterproductive. They may not always help you. So
Yeah. John, just for 1 second here,
Sure.
if you could flash on to slide 5. I've just got this link here for Carolyn Graham.
Oh, okay.
It might be interesting what we were talking about before with the stress time language. She's the one who does jazz chants, and I just found a quick link on YouTube.
Okay. Right.
She has many of these jazz chants, and they're just really good practice. Listen to them. Listen to what she's telling her class to do.
Right.
Because these videos are all about her in her classes. And then watch it a second time and try to participate. And you get, to say things like, why is this fish so tasty? Why is this fish so tasty? It's tasty. It's tasty. This fish is so darn tasty.
Yeah.
Just things like that, so that you get, practice at that.
It's like, I think it's like pronunciation practice, that we teach students to overdo it a little bit, Once there was a guy who had a nice wife, lived in Fusa town. What did he have? He had a wife. Was she nice? She was nice. It's kind of overdoing it. We don't really speak quite like that, but it's capturing quite a lot of the nuances. And in the same way, when we're teaching pronunciation, we might say to students, say, when you want to say the letter R, R, put your lips forward to say R when I'm teaching in Japan, and smile when you say L, R, R, L. But of course we don't smile and pout every time we say an L or an R. But
but I do find that a little bit of exaggeration at the beginning helps people to feel where these things are being located.
It helps.
And helps you to get the idea. You can always reduce the exaggeration as you go on.
That's the idea, I think, to start off exaggerating it, and the same way with these jazz chants. They're a kind of exaggeration of the intonation of everyday speech, but they help you to get into the swing of it. They help you to get the flow of the language. So good, yes, that's fine. Now, shall we move on to the first of today's
questions? Yeah.
Shall I just paste it in here? Oh.
You can. Please do.
It won't let me. It doesn't like me pasting in there. It wants me to do...
It doesn't like you today.
It's
Friday the 13th.
No, it always does that to me. I keep forgetting, but for some reason it only allows me to do it with the keyboard, not with the mouse. So I have a question about
why
appreciate.
Why don't you read the question for us?
I've put it onto your slide 5.
Right.
And it says, I have a question about appreciate. I sometimes hear people say, I appreciate you, instead of I appreciate it. Is it grammatically correct?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It just means something different.
Yeah. You're appreciating the person in general, as opposed to a particular thing that the person has done for you. So that's a pretty simple.
There's one thing I'd like to say about appreciate that I see and hear a lot, and I think it might confuse students a little bit. So I'm just going to put this twice now. There. So when you say I appreciate it, okay. This goes with what you were saying before. and what we were saying last week, you're going to take that T from appreciate and join it
Yeah,
to the it, so you get I appreciate it.
that's right.
But that's really close to appreciated.
The past tense.
So I think this is where a lot of students have a problem here. So that one almost sounds the same. The thing is, there's going to be an extra syllable.
Yeah,
I appreciated it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciated it. Whereas this one is I appreciate it.
Right. Now,
Yeah.
there is an area where it helps to understand the grammar, because appreciate in English is obligatorily transitive. You have to put the object. You can't just say I appreciate. And so if you think the person
like
just
enjoy.
said, yeah, you don't say I enjoyed. Okay. Now in some languages you can use verbs like that without putting the object of the verb. But in English you'd have to say I appreciate it. So if you're hearing I appreciated it with that extra syllable in there, it's obviously the past. But if you hear it, I appreciate it, and you can't hear, do they say I appreciate it or I appreciated? Well, grammatically they could not have said I appreciated. Not in English.
Perfect.
There would have to be an object. I appreciated it. So that's another way to disambiguate.
Now, I understand that this is a little bit much for students when they're in midstream conversation. You can't stop and go, did I hear, and was that past? And
Right.
oh no, there's an object. But, remember these things. Try to be able to hold your question so that when you get home or get into another place where you're not having the conversation, you can write it down quickly and analyze it yourself from the little bit of grammar that you know.
And something like that is not usually a communicative problem. You picked up that the other person appreciates. Yeah. That's it. That's all you really needed to know.
Yeah.
You've picked up the important points. So it's really a problem of production that you'll hear, for example, Spanish speakers often saying something like, I appreciated.
And
yeah.
I brought up enjoy because that's the one that I get in my.
I enjoy. Well, actually, yes. To be honest, enjoy is a bigger problem because yes.
How was your weekend? Oh, I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I really enjoyed.
It.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Yes, yeah. It's more of a production problem than a comprehension problem. You can usually figure out what the other person's saying, but you yourself, you're actually...
You're not breaking communication.
Yeah. But the short answer to that question is sure, it's grammatically correct and it makes perfect sense to say I appreciate you, which means that in general, you as a person, I value you. Whereas I appreciate it simply means whatever it is that you did for me just now, thank you. So the one is really...
You can put any object after appreciate, but make sure you do use an object.
Yeah.
And you're okay.
So...
All right. What's our next question?
I'll just very quickly put in something here. Thank you for being you would be I appreciate you. Thank you for being you. All right? And thank you for what you did would be, I appreciate it.
It.
Okay?
Yes.
So that's all the difference is, really.
Okay.
All right. So, yeah, let's move on to the next question.
Next one. Yeah, we can go down to slide 6 now, maybe.
Yeah, okay. Now... or I can just put the same stuff in here and take this out.
Google has just told me that I'm going to leave it. They're going to kick me out in 10 minutes for some reason.
They're going to kick you out.
So I'm just going to, they're going to kick me out. It's Friday the 13th, John.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just going to leave and come back, I think.
It's because our call apparently ends in 10 minutes and we have to upgrade to Google Workspace Individual to extend the call.
Oh.
That's what I'm getting.
Okay.
So if I extend the call, it means that I'm probably going to have to pay money to carry.
No.
No?
I will just make another meeting for us. All right.
Included
So,
in your trial. Oh,
while I do
I
that,
see.
why
I'm on a.
don't you discuss during?
I haven't used Google Workspace before. I think you use Google Workspace. You use these Google Meet things quite frequently, do you?
Yes.
So.
But not on this one. Don't worry about it. I'm just going to leave and make a new meeting, and I'll send it to you quickly.
Okay.
I'll be back.
All right.
So why don't you talk about during?
Yeah.
And I will be there in 30 seconds, I hope.
You're going to send that to me by email?
On this link. On this link. I'm not going to leave this meeting really.
You're just going to start another one as well?
Yeah. Okay.
I hope this works, yeah. Yeah, so why can't you say during sleeping? During is a preposition, but it can't be followed by a gerund. Well, the question is perfectly good and very well informed, but why? I'm probably going to end up just saying, well, some things are just because. That's the way they are. That's what the website is. It's difference between .net, and it looks at here the difference between during and while. They've got the whole section on grammar and the grammatical differences between confusables. I thought this was a reasonably good explanation. So if people would like to Google up difference between, or just put in that URL difference between .net, they'll get as good an explanation as I could give them, certainly, I think. Simply explaining the lexical...
I would just say during is, just try to think of having some event follow it.
Yes, it's an event, yes.
If you start thinking about time, change it to 4.
Yeah.
And I think you'll get it pretty much all the time. You're going to be right. And then with while, just try to think it's an action. It's a verb phrase. You need some kind of verb phrase after that. While he was sleeping, while we were working.
Right. While I ate hot dog, this website is saying, or while I was singing. Yes, while I was doing something. And what this questioner goes on to ask is really quite an astute question, that you can drop the subject. You can say while singing, and there the subject is understood as being the same subject. So
as long as the subject's the same.
Yeah. But that's where this question actually gets quite interesting, because you wouldn't say there was a big earthquake while sleeping, because the big earthquake wasn't sleeping.
Yeah.
Right? And that's
earthquakes don't sleep.
Yeah. And
maybe they do, but they don't rumble while they sleep.
But the intended meaning is that there was a big earthquake while I was sleeping, or while we were sleeping, or while people were sleeping. So it's a different subject. The subject is not earthquake, but it sounds as if the earthquake was sleeping there. And that just doesn't make sense.
Volcanoes can sleep.
Huh? Volcanoes, yeah, but there was, again, you wouldn't say there was a big eruption while asleep, because the whole point about the volcano is that while it's sleeping is when it's not erupting. So anyway, the point is that the earthquake is not intended to be the thing that's sleeping here. It's intended to be people were sleeping, we were sleeping, something like that. So we wouldn't say that. There was a big earthquake while sleeping. Well, we'd say that's wrong. But Notice this one. I like this one. Why is it okay to say, please refrain from talking in a loud voice when crowded?
Yeah.
You know, that somehow breaks the rule and yet manages to make sense to us.
But it would only be a notice on a train or something.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
wouldn't say that.
No. No.
No. And they're just taking things out. They're taking advantage of like really reducing the participle phrases and things just to try to it's almost like newspapers, you know, like reducing the grammar so that you can put all the information into a smaller space.
Yeah.
We
So
don't do that when we're speaking. We don't care about space. Lots
so
of people like to take up a lot of space when talking.
so I think the explanation that would come up there would be something like it's like newspaper headlines and so on, where we one can say we omit grammatical features like articles, you know, it would say alien,
Auxiliary verb.
yeah, giant waves down funnel of Queen Mary.
And
The idea that
passive
there's a
reduced.
giant waving down the funnel, but you see the thing is it's
Thousands
ambiguous.
killed.
Huh?
Passives are reduced. You get things like thousands killed.
Thousands killed instead of thousands were killed. That's right. You omit various grammatical features to save space. So
Also, you know, the going to future that's reduced. That's too big. If you look at it,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
am going to
yeah,
elect some president.
yeah,
In the headline, it'll be an infinitive.
yeah.
President to be.
That's right. If Putin's going to do something, it won't say Putin is going to Nanikana, whatever it might be. There's a say Putin to.
Yes.
Putin to order a massive escalation of troops or something, rather than Putin is going to. So we've got that kind of thing going on. In the same way, this notice on a train wants to get the information across as quickly and efficiently as possible, and it simply says, please refrain from talking in a loud voice when crowded. It doesn't mean that you are crowded, it means that the train is crowded. Yeah.
But you know, it is the source of a lot of humor, right?
Yes, I just
there
gave you an
are
example.
people who go around collecting these funny notices
Yeah,
and making Facebook posts and things like that
Yeah.
out of them.
well, that was the famous one I learned at school, giant waves down funnel of Queen Mary. That there were waves that were so big that they reached up to the funnel of the chimneys of the Queen Mary, the ocean liner. The waves were going, but it sounds as if there's a giant waving down into the funnel. So
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing that these newspaper headlines can sometimes native speakers have to look at them 2 or 3 times to think, what does it actually mean?
Oh yeah.
Because they've eliminated so many of the grammatical elements that you're sort of thinking, what are they talking about?
Exactly.
And finally realise, oh, I've been trying to understand that headline in the wrong way. They're expecting me to understand it differently. So
You know, I'm thinking, John, maybe we might if we get enough interest on this chat, have a few minutes talking about the vocabulary of newspapers.
sure,
You know, they do the same thing with the vocabulary. They try to reduce the space. Jobs axed.
right,
You know, just because that's such a short word and it's got a lot of impact.
right.
Yeah, some acronyms, MPs, things like that, you know.
Right, right,
which just make it easier to read a newspaper.
right. Yeah,
So I
I
think
think
we've got
so.
one more question, do we not?
No, we've got another question. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
This is the last one for today, and here it goes.
Okay.
Here we go with it. Oh God, I keep forgetting that I can't put it in with the mouse. Right. I think this is an example. Really, I'll read it out. I have a question about the future continuous used together with for and duration of time. So used together with with for. For example, is it correct to say I'll be playing football for 2 hours? And if so, what makes it different from I will play football for 2 hours? And
Well, first we have to think about when you're going to say that.
exactly, yeah.
I like to tell people that a default future, okay, is going to.
Right.
As we were talking about at the beginning of this chat, learning the standard way most people usually say things is really important. Then you can start going off into these more elaborate things. If I have a plan, I'm going to tell you I'm going to play football for 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's standard.
Yeah.
Then we have I'll be playing football for 2 hours. You've got to build a story around that and tell me why you have changed from the
Yeah.
regular. Why
Yeah.
have you deviated from what we normally say?
Yeah.
And the same with I will play football.
Right.
Will is not the future.
No. Yes, yes. We don't have a future as such in English. We just have various ways of talking about the future. Now,
and will's not the default.
No, will is not the default future, even though it's often taught. Yeah. Now, just to get one thing out of the way here, we can use will when we're making an offer to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So, if the person says, the children are saying, "Come on, Dad, we want you to come and play football with us. Come on, Dad, we can play all day in the park." And Dad says, "Look, I'm busy. I can't play football all day with you, but I'll play football for 2 hours." Okay?
So
Dad is making an offer.
Okay, I'll play. And don't forget, you have to say it like you're resigned.
Right.
Okay, I'll play.
I'll play for 2 hours. We can't use...
2 hours?
We can't use... will be playing. We can't use... I'll be playing in that way.
No.
Okay, so that's...
It has to be some kind of comparison to some other action. So...
Yeah.
Boy, while you're at work this afternoon, I'll be playing football.
Yeah. Well, but I think the person is specifically asking if there's a duration of time. They're not just
2 hours.
Not just that I'll be playing football, but I'll be playing football for 2 hours. I think that we'd only really use it. We wouldn't use it in most contexts, to be honest. I think it would only occasionally come in, and my video has gone again. Can I get my video back? No, I don't see. Okay, there's my video back again. Here I am. I'm on the wrong camera, but it doesn't matter. We'd only use it, I think it would only be used in very limited contexts where we were figuring out a schedule, or a schedule as you would pronounce it.
Yeah, okay, so I'll be playing football for 2 hours.
Yeah.
You'll be cleaning the house for 2 hours. So I guess we'll meet at 6 o'clock.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. So we might use I'll be plus ing if we were figuring out a schedule or something like that.
Mm-hmm. But again, this is so specific, so
Yes,
specific.
it's
that if you haven't mastered English with going to yet, don't even go here. It's not important at this moment.
this would be jumping
Honestly,
into.
I have probably said I'll be in for 2 hours, maybe twice in the last month.
Yeah,
Maybe. I don't even know.
no, it's not
So
frequent.
if me, a native speaker who really has a problem not talking, I talk a lot. If I haven't said it more than twice, you don't even need to think about it.
It's jumping into advanced grammar. And unless the person really is an advanced speaker, it's not really going to be particularly appropriate. It's not really particularly helpful. So
No,
it's low frequency. So if we
extremely
can
low frequency.
we can find a context for it, but it's fairly unusual. We wouldn't mostly use it. The default would be going to, and if we used will in with a specified period of time, it would normally be, you know, I'll do it for, I'll play football for 2 hours, and we'd only use the
But I'm
ing
not
form.
gonna like it.
No. To be honest, going to is the most usual one that we're mostly going to use. I think the only person who really needs to know this kind of thing, apart from maybe very advanced speakers, and I think it's a big responsibility of people setting tests. That they'll often say that something like, you know, I will be playing football for 2 hours is wrong, and it's the wrong answer. But if you're in a certain context, it could be the right answer. And I think this is something
That's it, and that's what drives me crazy with these state exams.
Yeah.
Is I could probably find the right context for almost anything.
Yeah. Unless it's
But the frequency of using it, that's where I would draw the line.
yeah.
You know, if a native speaker doesn't use it more than, I don't know what the number would be, 50%
Mm,
in a week, then don't teach it
yeah. There really
until
isn't
they're
any
at
point.
a kind of proficiency level.
Mm,
And even then, if you're at proficiency level and you're going to start using these kinds of structures, guess what? You've automated them. You've learned and absorbed this because of your level. You don't need to be taught this.
yeah. So I'm getting quite a lot of questions on YouTube about this kind of issue, and I'm kind of thinking these people are digging themselves into a bit of a hole here. They need to
Yes.
sort of
Yeah.
get out of the hole and look at what is it we usually say, instead of is it possible that under some very unusual circumstances we might say something.
And I might
That's
meet
not
an
really the
alien
point, is
this
it?
afternoon in my garden.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm not going to take the precautions of that event possibly happening.
No, it's not likely.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll draw a line under it there and say that we've answered
All right.
people's questions for this
Sounds
week,
good,
and yeah,
And we'll be back next week.
and hopefully
So get your questions ready, and we'll see you.
we'll see you then. And I hope we don't have as many.
20th of May.
I hope we don't have as many little glitches as we've
Well,
had today.
it won't be Friday the 13th.
It won't be Friday the
Everything will be
13th.
perfect.
Absolutely. Okay, everybody.
All right.
Bye bye now.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.